this painting we're going to paint a whimsical tree freehand. So you are going to get your canvas panel. The acrylic paints that I offer are in paint pods, and you can purchase your own acrylic paints if you want, but acrylic paint does come in different quality brands, so make sure you get a good quality paint of acrylic paint. Mine are very creamy and smooth, so make sure you just get a good quality paint. We're going to be using acrylic paint. This is called paper palette, so it works as a paper plate. A lot of people use paper plates for the paint parties, but this is called a paper palette, and it's like wax paper, so it's used to mix colors. Then I have a napkin and your various size brushes and a cup of water. So you are going to follow my lead. I will paint somewhat fast for the sake of making this video short. So if you need to pause the video, please pause the video. Don't try to keep up with me because I'm just going to be painting pretty fast to give you tips, but as well as to keep the video short. So the first thing we're going to do, when you use acrylic paint, it dries very fast. So make sure if you're using my paint pods that you close the paint pods after each use so that the acrylic paint stays consistent and doesn't dry, so you won't be able to use it if it dries. Alright, so the first shape that we are going to paint, you are going to get whatever size brush that you need that is comfortable with you to paint. So pick whatever size that you are comfortable with, and the first shape I'm going to do is I'm going to create a circle. I'm going to touch my yellow and I'm going to create a circle that represents the sun. So it can be any size that you want. You do not have to paint according to my proportion. I like when you improvise and create your own ideas, but I'm going to paint a circle that represents the sun. So the paint, like I said, it dries pretty fast, and we were going to be painting on top of layers, so that's called overlapping. So acrylic paint does dry fast. Okay, so once I make my circle with yellow, I'm going to hit the bottom of my cup because I'm done with yellow. Hit the bottom of my cup to get all the pigment off, and then I'm just going to dab my paper towel just to get the excess water off. And then I'm going to close my pod. So like I said, make sure you close the colors after each use so that the acrylic paint stays wet. Alright, so I like painting light colors and background first. So that gives it time to dry so we can paint on top of layers, like I said. So the next color I'm going to do is blue. Now, if you have blue, you can also use white to make it baby blue. So if you mix blue and white, it turns into baby blue. So like I said, you can use the paint palette to mix. If you do that, you're just going to use little sections. You don't want to paint all over and make a mess. So I prefer to paint directly on the canvas. It is up to you whether you want to mix on the paper palette. I will show you how to do that, but I personally prefer painting on the canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some white, and I'm just going to put some white in the background a little bit, and then I'm going to show you how the blue mixes. I'm going to grab a little bit of blue, and like I said, you can either mix on the paper palette like this and it turns into baby blue. So white and blue turns into a lighter blue, but I personally prefer like mixing on the canvas, like I said. So once you put some white, you go ahead and just mix and start painting your background. I'm not going to paint the whole background because there's going to be some landscape down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline a shape of some grass hills. So I'm just going to really outline just to give me a guide. Okay, this is some dried acrylic paint. Alright, so if you go back and forth and use both sides of your brush, you're going to get baby blue. So make sure you use both sides of your brush to get all of the paint, use up all the paint that you have. Now I am not concerned about getting a consistent baby blue, but if you want to, you can. I personally like using lights and darks, so I'm going to mix directly on the canvas. Like I said, I don't like using paper palette, but it is up to you. If you're more comfortable doing that to mix your colors, you can. So I am not concerned about getting a consistent baby blue. I like light and dark baby blue. Okay, I'm going to go around my circle. Try not to mix into it too much because blue and yellow turns into green a little bit. But like I said, acrylic paint dries pretty fast. So go around your circle, use both sides of the brush, and then, like I said, I'm not concerned about the consistency of the same baby blue because I'm actually going to go touch into my blue. I'm not going to rinse. I'm using different shades of blue, so I do not have to rinse my brush. When I say rinse your brush, that's if you're changing colors completely. So I'm still into my blues, and I'm going to make some clouds, and I'm just barely touching my canvas into like some circular motions, and I'm going to make some implied clouds in the background. So you see there's light blue, a little bit of darker blue. So I don't want a consistent baby blue, but if you do, that is perfectly fine. It is up to you. And then I'm going to go around the contour of the sun, the shape of the sun, and just do some movement lines. That's called contour, following the shape. Okay, so I'll do a couple of lines around the sun. There's my background. Now I am done with the baby blue. So I'm going to close my blue pod so it doesn't dry. Close my white pod. I will be talking fast. Like I said, please pause the video in order to keep up. So now that I'm done with the baby blue, I'm going to hit the bottom of the cup to get all the excess pigment off. Tap dry with the paper towel. Please pause the video if I'm going too fast. The next painting I'm going to do is down here, the landscape. I'm going to make green grass. So I'm opening up my green, and I'm also going to open up my white because I want to make some dark green and light green. And if you add a little bit of yellow, you can actually make a lime green too. So I like different shades when I paint. Alright, lights and darks of one color. I'm going to go into my green, and I'm going to touch the bottom where I'm going to be making grass. But I also want to mix to make light and dark. So once I put some green on here, like I said, you can mix on the palette if you want to. I'm going to grab some white now, and I'm going to rinse my brush because I don't want to contaminate my white with green. So I'm going to rinse my brush, get some white, and I'm going to mix directly on the canvas now to make some light green. Be careful not to touch the blue, but it is okay. Get right on the edge. If you got to go over it a little bit, that is fine because acrylic paints very fast. So it's actually probably dry. Alright. Paint your grass, different shades of green, or if you want a consistent solid green, go ahead and just do one color, but like I said, I like different shades to make it look more realistic. Sometimes you need to do 2 layers of acrylic. If you need to do a second layer, that's fine to make it more darker. But use both sides of the brush, like I said, and I personally like lights and darks. So once I'm finished with the grass, I'm going to touch the bottom of my cup, get all the green pigment off, tap your paper towel to dry the excess water off, and then the next shape I am going to paint is going to be a tree. We're doing a whimsical tree. So I am going to get another size brush. You use whatever size feels comfortable when we are painting, so switch and alternate between the big brush and the small brush. I'm going to be drawing a whimsical tree, so I'm going to go into my black. I'm going to make a silhouette tree, a whimsical tree. I'm going to get my black and I'm going to draw a trunk. Now you can hold the brush 2 ways. You can hold it and make a wide branch like this, or if you turn it, you can make a thin line. So pay attention to how you hold your brush, but I'm going to go ahead and make a large trunk, and I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to start curving a little bit, but I'm going to stop because I'm going to want to change brushes if you don't know how to control your brush. You can either turn it and you can make a thin line, and I'm going to go across my sun. That's called overlapping. So the branch is in front of the sun. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put this brush up. I'm going to hit the bottom of the cup. Whenever you're not using the brush, make sure you rinse it. Do not leave it in the water because it will ruin your brushes eventually if you keep brushes in the water. So rinse your brush every time you're done using it. Tap dry it on the paper towel. I'm going to switch brushes now because I'm going to make thin lines, and you need the smallest brush to make thin lines. If you want to make a thin line, get some black on your paintbrush, put it on the palette paper, and then you're going to twirl, you're going to turn your brush, and that'll make a fine tip, okay? So I started my branch, the trunk, and then I stopped because I want to make a thin line. So I'm going to continue with the smallest brush and make a swirl. Okay, so use the smallest brush to make thin lines. I'm going to go back into the trunk, and I'm going to go, I went this way, so now I want to make one going this direction. Okay, now this technique is kind of hard to do because you're making very thin lines, but this design is showing you how to make different strokes with your brush, so thin lines, thick lines. So this is a very easy design to practice with. So I made a swirl going this direction. Now I'm going to make one going the opposite direction. And making this whimsical tree, you're going to make swirls in different directions. Okay, so if you go to the left once, you go to the right. Then I'm going to continue from the branch. Make another swirl. And you're going to fill all of the negative space around your canvas to make a whimsical tree. Okay, but go in different directions. If you go to the left once, go to the right. Right? So your painting can improvise and be different than mine. It does not have to follow the exact same design as mine. So fill up all your negative space with some branches. Now I'm going to do the root also. So do some thin swirls into the grass, which is the roots of the whimsical tree. Just do a few of them, left and right. Barely touch your canvas and go pretty quick. Because if you go real slow when you're doing these thin lines, you'll start shaking and you'll see that you're shaking in the painting. Alright, so I did some branches. I'm done with my black now. Hit the bottom of your cup. Tap dry on the paper towel and close your pod. Please pause the video if you need to catch up. I am now going to make some red flowers on some of the branches. I'm not going to do all the branches. So I touch my red and I tap little dots to represent some blooming flowers. Okay, so I'm implying some flower blossoms. If you touch into the black a little bit, it'll turn into a dark red. That is perfectly fine because y'all want to see lights and darks. So touch your red and just do some of the branches, not all of them. You want some bright red. If you touch some of the black, it'll turn into a dark maroon. And you just want to do 4 or 5 branches, okay? Not all of them. Once you do the red, rinse your brush. And now I'm going to go into the white and add some highlights. So dark means shadow, white means highlight. So rinse your excess, and you're going to touch your white and go into the red and just hit a little bit. Now once you hit a few white dots, you will notice sometimes that it's going to turn pink a little bit. White and red makes pink, and that is great because you're showing different values and hues of red. So you want a little bit of white in each one, just a few dots, and you will see that white and red makes pink. So it's good to have a little bit of pink. Okay, so we're finished with the flowers. I want to do a few more whimsical branches, but I want different shades. Instead of them all being black, I'm going to add a few green ones. So make sure you close your pods after each use because acrylic paint dries fast. And I'm going to do a few small green branches just to contrast the black and give it a little bit of color. Okay, and so like I said, this design is very simple and easy, very pretty, but it gives you an opportunity to learn how to use your brush, how to do thick strokes and how to do thin strokes. Okay, I'm adding a little detail into my green again, lights and darks, so as the paint dries you can add some light and dark to it to make it look more realistic. And this is the design of a whimsical tree. Basic, easy design, showing you the techniques of how to use acrylic paint. So if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you will see more painting videos like this. You can order some kits and there will be some pre-drawn designs that you can order, and follow my video and it will show you how to draw with acrylic paint.